There's a specific kind of silence that fills a boardroom right before a career ends. It's not a peaceful silence. It's the sound of the air leaving the room, sucked out by the realization that everything you thought you knew was a lie. I live for that silence. It's the only reason I do this job. My name is Elias. If you saw me walking down the street, you wouldn't look twice. I drive a 10-year-old sedan. I wear off-the-rack suits that are slightly too loose in the shoulders, and I have the kind of face that people forget 5 seconds after they meet me. At Obsidian Capital, one of the most aggressive hedge funds in the city, I was known simply as the new analyst. Or if you ask Julian, the senior portfolio manager, I was known as the charity case. Julian was the kind of man who didn't just want to win. He wanted you to lose. He was 35, looked like he was carved out of marble, and wore watches that cost more than my father's house. He was the golden boy of Obsidian Capital. He generated the highest returns, charmed the investors, and walked through the office like he owned the building. But there was a rumor about Julian, a whisper that his numbers were too good to be true. That's why the board of directors hired me. I wasn't an analyst. I am a forensic accountant with a specialization in corporate fraud. I've taken down CEOs, senators, and cartel money launderers. But to catch Julian, I couldn't come in as an auditor. He would have shredded the evidence before I even got my ID badge. I had to come in as his victim. My first day set the tone for the next 2 months. I was assigned to Julian's direct team. I walked into his office, a glass box overlooking the city skyline, carrying my orientation packet. Julian didn't even look up from his phone. He had his feet on the desk, crossing ankles clad in Italian leather. "Excuse me, Julian," I asked softly. "I'm Elias. I'm the new. I know who you are." He interrupted, finally glancing at me with a look of pure boredom. "You're the diversity hire. The safe choice HR forced on me to balance out the team demographics. Listen closely, Elias. I run a Ferrari engine here. You're a spare tire. You stay in the trunk, you keep your mouth shut, and you don't slow us down. If you get in my way, I will leave you on the side of the road." "Clear. Crystal clear, sir," I stammered, doing my best impression of a terrified junior employee. "Don't call me sir," he sneered. "It makes you sound like a butler. Go find a desk in the back. And give me a sparkling water. Ice. No lemon." For the next 6 weeks, I became the office punching bag. It was part of the job, but Julian made it personal. He didn't just give me grunt work. He gave me impossible work. He would dump 1,000 pages of data on my desk at 5 p.m. and demand a summary by 8 a.m. When I delivered it, bleary-eyed and exhausted, he would toss it in the recycling bin without reading it. He mocked my clothes. He mocked my lunch. He mocked the way I typed. He made a point of excluding me from email chains and then yelling at me for not being in the loop. "You're useless, Elias," he told me one afternoon in front of the entire trading floor. "I bet you can't even balance your own checkbook, let alone a portfolio. Why don't you quit? Save us the paperwork." I just looked down at my shoes. "I need this job, Julian." "Pathetic," he laughed, turning back to his acolytes who all chuckled on cue. But while Julian was busy stroking his ego, I was busy working. Every time he made me stay late, I had access to the servers. Every time he threw a stack of garbage files at me to sort, I was scanning them for discrepancies. And I found them. Oh, did I find them? Julian wasn't a genius investor. He was a thief. He had set up a complex web of shell companies in the Cayman Islands. He was funneling client money into these shells, marking it as consulting fees or high-risk losses, and then looping it back into his own personal accounts. It was a Ponzi scheme wrapped in a hedge fund, and he was getting sloppy. I had almost everything I needed. I just needed one final piece of evidence, his private ledger, the physical notebook he kept locked in his desk drawer, the one he never let out of his sight. The opportunity came during the firm's annual gala. It was a black tie event, dripping with champagne and excess. Julian was in his element, holding court with the partners, laughing loudly, his hand on the shoulder of the CEO. I was there, wearing my ill-fitting suit, standing by the buffet table. Julian spotted me and wandered over, a glass of scotch in his hand. He looked a little unsteady. "Elias," he boomed. "Look at you. You look like a waiter who got lost." "Good evening, Julian," I said. "Enjoying the party?" "I am the party," he grinned. He leaned in close, his breath smelling of expensive alcohol. You know, I'm thinking of firing you tomorrow. Just for fun. I think I'll tell HR you stole something. Maybe a laptop. Who are they going to believe? The golden boy? Or the spare tire? He laughed and patted my cheek, a degrading, heavy slap. Enjoy the shrimp, Elias. It's the most expensive thing you'll ever eat. He walked away laughing, but in his arrogance, he had made a mistake. He was drunk, and he had left his office key card in his jacket pocket. The jacket he had just draped over a chair to go dance with a client's wife. I waited 5 minutes. I walked past the chair, bumped it accidentally, and palmed the key card. I slipped out of the ballroom and took the elevator up to the 40th floor. The office was dark and silent. I swiped into Julian's office. I didn't need to break the lock on his drawer. I knew he kept the key taped under his stapler, a habit I'd noticed 3 weeks ago. Men like Julian are arrogant. They think no one is watching closely enough to notice the small things. I opened the drawer. There it was. The black leather notebook. I flipped through it. It was all there. Account numbers, passwords, real names. The smoking gun. I took photos of every page, put the notebook back, and returned the key card to his jacket before the song ended. The next morning, the axe fell. I walked into the office to find security guards standing at my desk. Julian was there, looking fresh and sharp, holding a plastic box. The entire floor had stopped working to watch. Elias, Julian announced, his voice projecting so everyone could hear. We've had some security breaches regarding client data. A missing hard drive. We checked the logs. It seems you were in the office late last night, while everyone was at the gala. My heart pounded. He was making his move. He was framing me for his own theft. I was working, I said, playing the part. Stealing is hard work, I suppose, Julian smirked. I've already spoken to the board. You're terminated, effective immediately. We will be pressing charges. Security, escort him out. Wait, I said, my voice trembling slightly. Can I speak to the CEO? There's been a mistake. The CEO doesn't speak to thieves, Julian spat. Get him out of here. Actually, a deep voice boomed from the entryway. I think I'd like to hear what he has to say. It was Mr. Sterling, the CEO of Obsidian Capital. He walked on the floor, flanked by 2 other board members. Julian's face lit up. He thought the cavalry had arrived. Mr. Sterling, Julian said, smoothing his tie. I was just handling this trash. I caught him trying to siphon client data. I was just about to hand him over to the police. Is that so? Sterling asked, looking at me. Elias? Is that true? I stopped trembling. I straightened my posture. I reached into my ill-fitting jacket and pulled out a tablet. I tapped the screen 3 times and swiped the image to the main monitors on the trading floor wall. No, sir, I said. My voice wasn't soft anymore. It was the cold, hard voice of the auditor. That is not true. On the giant screens, where stock tickers usually ran, a document appeared. It was a bank transfer record. From Obsidian Capital to JV Holdings in the Cayman Islands. Julian froze. He looked at the screen, then at me. What is this? That, I said, stepping forward, is a transfer of $4 million made 3 days ago. Authorized by your biometric ID. This is fake. Julian yelled, his composure cracking. He hacked the system. He forged it. Did I? I asked. I swiped the tablet again. A photo appeared. It was a handwritten page from a black notebook. This is your handwriting, Julian. Project Skylark, 12 million diverted. Dated last Tuesday. The color drained from Julian's face. He instinctively looked toward his office, toward the drawer where the notebook was hidden. Who are you? Julian whispered. My name is Elias Vance, I said, dropping the act entirely. I am a senior forensic auditor for the Securities Commission. The board hired me 2 months ago because they suspected a leak. They just didn't know the leak was their golden boy. A gasp went through the room. The useless temp was suddenly the most powerful person in the building. Mr. Sterling, I said, turning to the CEO, if you check the files I just emailed you, you'll see that Julian has embezzled approximately $45 million over the last 3 years. He has been using the accounts of the junior analysts to hide the transfers, planning to blame them when the house of cards collapsed. He planned to blame me today. Julian began to back away. This is entrapment. You can't prove that notebook is mine. I don't have to, I smiled. Because I didn't just take photos, Julian. I planted a tracker in the spine of the book. And I can see that you moved it to your gym bag this morning. I pointed to the expensive leather duffel bag sitting by Julian's feet. Sterling gestured to the security guards, the ones Julian had called to escort me out. Check the bag. Julian lunged for the bag, but the guards were faster. They tackled him to the ground. It wasn't a graceful fight. It was a desperate, thrashing struggle of a man who knew his life was over. They ripped the bag open and pulled out the black notebook. Sterling took it, flipped it open, and looked at Julian with pure disgust. You're done, Julian. Julian was panting, his expensive suit rumpled, his face pressed against the carpet. The same carpet he used to make me kneel on to pick up his trash. Elias. Julian wheezed, looking up at me. Please, we can work something out. I have money. I can pay you. I crouched down, so I was eye level with him. I don't want your money, Julian. I just want you to answer one question. What? He begged. How does it feel? I asked quietly. To be the spare tire? The police arrived 10 minutes later. They marched Julian out in handcuffs past the entire staff. He didn't look like a golden boy anymore. He looked small. I spent the next week leading the audit team to recover the funds. We got back almost everything. When the job was done, Mr. Sterling offered me a permanent position. VP of Risk Management. Double my usual salary. Corner office. I turned it down. Why? Sterling asked, confused. You'd run this place in a year. I don't like offices, I told him, picking up my old briefcase. And besides, I have another job starting on Monday. Where? A pharmaceutical company, I said, adjusting my cheap tie. Apparently, their CFO has a new yacht that he can't explain, and they need a new mailroom clerk. I walked out of the building, got into my 10-year-old sedan, and drove away. Julian is serving 15 years in a federal prison. I hear he's working in the laundry room. Karma.